And joining us this morning is ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tinio himself. Good morning, Congressman, and thanks for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to. Thank you for having me here, and morning to the viewers.
All right, Congressman, can we get your reaction first to the statement of Congressman Paolo Duterte saying that he has nothing to hide and he welcomes this invite by the ICI also to investigate flood control projects in his own district, dyan po sa Davao City?
Well, that's good to hear. If he welcomes the investigation, then that should make it easier. I understand that he has a schedule with the ICI sometime this week. So hopefully it will be live streamed.
Kong Tony, tell us about some of the glaring red flags you found in the first district of Davao, the anomalies in flood control contracts. What were some of the red flags that you spotted?
Yeah, we looked at not all the contracts, just some of the contracts. We didn't look at all the 51 billion worth of infrastruccer projects that were supposedly downloaded to the district of Paolo Duterte. We saw in 80 contracts worth 4.4 billion pesos a number of red flags. So including double funding, overlapping projects, so flood control projects in the same area, but they overlap, so that's suspicious. There were changes in location, so the authorized project is supposedly for one area, but it's reported to be in another, and the length is very much shortened. So instead of, for example, a 300-meter project, it's only 125 or 130 meters, but the payment remains the same. So that's a possible case of gross overpricing. And in at least 10 contracts, they remain incomplete or ongoing, even though they were granted as early as 2020. So why is it taking 5 years and the project remains ongoing? So that's also, we're asking the ICI to look further into these, as we call them, red flags, which may indicate irregularities.
Kong Tinio, these possible irregularities that you're citing are more focused on the contracts themselves. How were you able to obtain records from the DPWH?
Well, we asked the DPWH to provide us with the records for some of the contracts, and the information they provided was very helpful. These included area maps, so of the river. So we looked at projects along two rivers only. That's the Davao River and the Matina River. So the DPWH provided maps and showed where the contracts or the projects are supposedly located. So that was also helpful. Plus, we used data from looking at the budget documents themselves, the General Appropriations Acts for 2019 to 2022, as well as some of the websites that have been made available to the public, where you can access contracts or other information from the Sumbong sa Pangulo website to at least two other DPWH websites.
And so, Kong Tinio, what is the involvement of Congressman Paolo Duterte here? Because you have him arguing that he has nothing to hide and that the DPWH is the implementing agency. Are you seeing clear ties between these projects and Congressman Paolo Duterte? Proponent po ba siya sa ilang mga proyektong yan?
Of the 80 contracts that we say have red flags, 49 of those are the result of congressional insertions, meaning to say they were not in the original national expenditure program that was submitted to Congress. So they were insertions made in Congress, and at the time, these projects are in his district. And at the time, he was the congressman. He still is the congressman of that district. So, um, in other words, if there is a proponent, the first one to ask would be the representative of the district. It just stands to reason. Um, and it is the ICI in one of its earlier interim reports. It's the ICI itself that identified modus, the mode of by which the infrastructure corruption is carried out. It starts with the proponent making a congressional insertion, and then the insertion turns into a contract that is awarded through rig bidding to a favored contractor, and then the kickback is paid, and then because the kickback is paid, the project is constructed, but it is grossly overpriced or substandard, or in some cases, ghost project.
But Kong
We're
Tinio,
not making conclusions at this point. That's why we're asking for further investigation.
Yes, exactly. And to be fair, I mean, if there's anything we also learned from the past months is meron din na yung modus of sagasa, di ba? In some districts where other congressmen put funds in those districts nang hindi alam ng congressman. But of course, that's subject to investigation and something that the ICI should continue investigating. But Congressman, tell us about the contractor Genesis 88. How closely tied are they to the Dutertes?
Yeah, the biggest recipients of the contract that we looked at is a contractor named Genesis 88. This is owned by a former presidential advisor during the time of President Duterte, and it's also the donor, a campaign donor to Vice President Sara Duterte in the 2022 election. So in short, this is owned by someone who is quite close to the Dutertes. No? So again, that's also another angle that should be looked at is how come the biggest contracts or the largest number of contracts have been awarded to someone closely identified with the Dutertes, who was even a campaign donor of the vice president.
So
Of course,
Tinio,
the election law prohibits that.
Kong Tinio, so tell us, what are your expectations now that you've submitted your findings to the ICI? Congressman Pulong Duterte is scheduled to face the commission this week. What are some of the possible violations charges that could arise from these anomalies?
Well, we leave it to the ICI to determine if there are violations. No? I mean, it could be, graft and corrupt, violations of the anti-graft law, even the plunder law. I mean, but we'd rather leave that matter to the ICI itself, the determination of what exact violations, if any, have been made in the case of these projects.
Actually, the observation of many Filipinos, congressman, is parang puro sap-sap pa lang yung mga nahuhuli, mga nabibigyan ng mga arrest warrants, charges. Would you consider Congressman Pulong Duterte to be a big fish?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Congressman.
Well, we're talking about a Duterte. So, and okay, two things. One, the current investigations have focused on flood control projects during the current administration, which is only fair. No? However, the flood control corruption in flood control projects did not start under this administration, but rather during the previous administration. You can really trace when uh, the number of flood control projects being funded increased exponentially. No, and it was during the years something like 2019. Previous to this, only a few flood control projects here and there were being funded, but by 2019 onwards, practically most districts uh, started funding and awarding flood control contracts. So it really started during the Duterte administration. That's why we thought it important to start also looking into projects earlier during the previous administration. That's why the contracts we're talking about are from 2019 to 2022.
So, Congressman,
So that,
yes, just to clarify,
and
you said.
we started with Davao City because it is also a fact that similar to how it's turning out based on a recent PCIJ report that the um, majority leader from Ilocos Norte, Sandro Marcos, reportedly has the biggest allocations in his district, according to news reports. So during the Duterte administration, it was Pulong Duterte who had the biggest DPWH allocation. So this is why we decided to look into the flood control projects in Davao City.
Yes, Congressman. So to clarify, no, you did say you're just getting started because on the other side you have the Duterte camp saying that they're being singled out. Yeah, but we're going to leave that conversation there for now. Thank you for your time. ACT Teachers Party's Representative Antonio Tinio.